But let me tell you first what I've been doing this morning. Flower Club had an outing to a local pick your own farm, which I've been following on Instagram for about a year and a half, something like that. And it's a flower farm that just happens to be about a 12-minute drive from home, perhaps 15 minutes. So we organised a casual flower club outing, and I thought you might like to see the flowers that I have got. Now, the hot water has just finished boiling. So let me show you what I'm going to do. Inside the flower farm hut, it said, when you take your flowers home, don't forget to condition them. So I thought I would come on today and just explain a little bit about conditioning flowers and what it actually means. You may know, if you've been buying your flowers from a supermarket or even the florist, you probably undo the wrapping, recut the stems, put them into fresh water. That is conditioning. You may even decide to add a little bit of flower food. But what do you do when you've picked your homegrown? I've been to a pick your own farm, but it may well be if you've got a beautiful garden, you're picking lots of flowers in your garden. How do you condition those flowers? And it's just a tiny bit different. So I would say, that the supermarket flowers give you like a 7-day guarantee. If you look after your homegrown flowers, they should last the same amount of time. You should get a good 7 days out of them. You might even get 10 days out of them, but you have to give them the best start in life possible. And you have to keep on going and looking after them. Now, at the moment, what's in season? I've picked dahlias, I've picked zinnias, and I've picked sunflowers. These are quite dirty flowers, which means that the water in your vase will probably need replacing every single day, every other day. Normally when we're looking at our vases, we're making sure they're topped up. We know that your flowers will last longer if you've got them in a clean receptacle, fresh water, and the option of flower food for a bit of extra pizzazz in terms of nutrient and antibacterial elements. But the zinnias, the dahlias, and the sunflowers can make the water very dirty. And I would say that's because it makes the water dirty. If you're using an opaque vase, a vase you can't see through, you don't know what's happening inside the vase. So it may be that for those 3 kinds of flowers, the zinnias, the dahlias, and the sunflowers, you might be better off arranging them in a glass vase. You can see the state that the water gets into. And eventually it'll stink. But probably the thing, if you're not refreshing your water for those particular flowers, you'll wonder why the flowers didn't last so long. So just have a little think about that. So shall we see what I got? So I've got my boiled water here. I've also got a bucket of water here. I have put some tepid water in there. I don't want to give my flowers a shock, so it's not freezing cold from the tap. So I have picked a lot of lovely flowers. So for the flower farm, the options were a £20 bucket, I think it was a £40 bucket, and then a £75 bucket. I paid for a £20 bucket. And when you get the bucket, it doesn't look particularly big. It's not a bucket like this. That may well be the 40 or the £75 bucket worth you get. But it's, when you go to a florist shop and they've got those galvanised, quite tall, silvery metal containers, the little handles on the side, it's that size bucket. So it's probably with an opening of about that big. Top tip, as you're going along, putting your flowers into your bucket, pull off the lower leaves, because then there'll just be stems going to your bucket and not the bulky greenery. And also a flower farm, I would tempt yourself to pick long if you're able to. And it just means that you can enjoy your flowers long. As you're recutting the stems, replenishing the water, you can rearrange them, make it a little bit shorter, a little bit shorter, a little bit shorter. If you cut your flowers short, you're just going to have short flowers. So it's quite nice to have the option of, if you can do, cutting them long. So I'm just going to take them out of the bag. My friend that I went to, Jan, I bought the bucket with me. She bought some plastic bags, which is quite handy because the lady who tied the flowers up for us did actually put some wet kitchen towel around the bottom. So what's the time? It's just gone 12 o'clock. We met at the flower farm 2 hours ago. So these, and we did have a cup of tea and a piece of cake first. So these have been out of water. I've been home literally long enough to make my husband a cup of tea, give him one of my fresh blackberry muffins I made this morning, and boil the water. So I've been home, 10, 15 minutes. And that's always the key, is getting your flowers in water as soon as you possibly can. So look, take a good long look at the flowers I have got there. And remember, £20, what excellent value for money. And in actual fact, it may be more cost effective if you're buying flowers to buy something that is seasonal, local, grown, not flown, something different as an alternative to your all year round flowers in the supermarket. You know, your carnations, your chrysanthemums, the roses, beautiful as they are, they don't change much week in, week out at the supermarket. You might occasionally get an aster or a gladioli, something like that, but they're the staples that you'll always get at the supermarket. So I just love this bunch. So you can see as I'm holding it, I managed to get all those stems in the bucket that had a mouth this big. So let's undo the string. I could cut it, but half of me is thinking, if I undo the string, I can put it in my string drawer and save it for another day. So I don't think, am I going to be able to do that? Yes, I can undo that. So piece of string, keep it for my next hand-tied bouquet, and let's get going. So, we could have a little plant identification class, couldn't we? Dahlia unfurled. Now, use your flower arranging skills when you're picking flowers. I've recut the stem, and I'm just going to put it's sort of shock in there and then in the bucket. So I've poured my water into a jug it's quite wide and open. This might have worked slightly better if it was a taller container. So just for a couple of seconds, and I should put that in there before I start talking, because what you want to do is recut the stems and get them into your bucket as soon as you can. So if you sort of have too much of a break between cutting the stems and putting in the water, you'll find that there's like an airlock that develops, and that's what stops the water coming up. So this here, I had overlooked this, but the good value of going picking with friends is that they spot something and you can go back and get it. But this is the beautiful fountain grass. So sometimes you will get that in a supermarket bouquet if you're lucky, coming into September time. So this was the first flower that I picked. We started at the end of the farm, and we found some antirrhinums, some snapdragons. But can you see that the leaves on the stem are starting to look a bit bedraggled? So I will perhaps take half the leaves off, recut that stem, hold it in the water for the count of 5 or something like that, and put it in the bucket. And then we were having this dilemma on the drive over about how long or short to cut the flowers. So if this dahlia here was growing in my garden, I may well have only cut it this long, because there's a side shoot here and I would want that side shoot to come out into flower. As I was at a cutting farm, I decided to cut for length. So it means that the flower farmer isn't going to be able to earn money off that flower because I've cut it before it was allowed to bud up. And I will say, when we were there, you walk into, it wasn't particularly big, the cutting plot. It was probably, 3 times the size of my garden, 4 times the size, 3 or 4 times the size of my garden. And it was done into beds and you could walk between the beds. And now I've forgotten what I was going to say. So I'll have to come back to that. But this is the thing about cutting long. If I cut long, I've got more variation. And what I was doing, so what you're not seeing me doing at the moment, is I'm not pulling off the lower leaves, because when I put them into the vase, I was taking the lower leaves off and letting them fall. I don't know what that is. It's almost like a really delicate, I think it might begin with G. It's not a Gadisha, I don't think. Perhaps if you know what that is. It almost looks like a really delicate or exotic gladioli-esque. a cross between a gladioli, an orchid, and something that is quintessentially garden, country garden. So again, this was the snapdragon, the antirrhinum, the first thing I picked. You need to decide colours. I mean, do you need to decide what colours you're going to use? I think my natural reaction would have been to perhaps have gone with all one colour, but I wanted to embrace the fact that I was at a flower farm and the colours were, magnificent across the board. So on the whole, I haven't got a lot of orange or a lot of yellow, not my favourite colours. I've got the tiniest speck of white. So I've gone for the jewelled tones. So another dahlia there, really, having said I don't particularly like. Yellow, I have got a yellow dahlia with a little side shoot at the side. Oh, I know what I was going to say. It's about, I picked long, but also thinking about the form of your flower. So I haven't picked all the flowers that are circular. It's not all dahlias. I've got a mix of the fountain grass, a line flower, the sort of mini gladioli thing, a line flower. This, although it's, it's round, but it's got a long stem, it's another line that's being created. So these are, well, I won't tell you what these are. Have a guess in the comments and let's see who's right. Can you see them? So these are, what's their real name? We get so, real names always may seem so difficult. So it's the common name that I know them as. Actually, these aren't what I thought they were. These are asters. I thought there was something else. They are asters, but they're nice and neat and petite. Some of the asters there were huge white balls. They looked almost like bloom chrysanthemums, but I didn't get those because I didn't want that much white. Now, this is a foliage that I want to grow at home. Do you remember way back when I used to teach flower classes at flower farms, and in particular with Anna at Anna's Country Farm, which is about 20 minutes away from me. And she always grew a lot of this foliage. It's called clary sage. I think that's just C-L-A-R-Y sage. And it's variegated. So I think you can get green tones. This is like a pale mauve. I think you get more of a burgundy variety as well. But it's a really good double duty of a foliage that's a flower. So it's just introducing a nice texture. I've even got some of the, I don't know whether they'll show up. These are the snowberries. So it's a little bit early in the season because the berries haven't developed, but this is going to be really great because not only, I've got long stems, I've thought about my flower form, whether it's a spike, a line, a branched or a spray version, or whether it's a single bloom around thorn, but I'm also thinking about texture as well. From a distance, this has sort of got the look of a very graceful piece of eucalyptus. It's not eucalyptus, but it's got the berries that are starting to develop. They look like miniature bunches of grapes with a tiny flush of pink. Actually, more than grapes, they look like red currants. That's sort of very small with a little bit of a tuft at the end. You know how gooseberry has? So into there. And then the zinnias. I have never been able to grow zinnias, so I'm always happy to say hello to them. Like everything, I'm trying to develop my herbaceous border, my cutting farm, and it's becoming more fulsome, but I haven't been able to grow, cosmos this year. It was good last year, but not so good this year. Actually, it's been a disaster this year. I've never had much success with zinnias. And I've across the course of a year, I've probably picked about, last year, picked about 7 heads of zinnia. And this year, absolutely none. So thinking about spike forms again and different heights of things. I don't know what these purple flowers are. So if I want a bit of, a bit of R&R this afternoon, I can get my camera out, Google Lens, put it over the flowers and see what I've actually got. There were little name tags, so I guess if you really wanted to know, you could have taken a photograph of the name tag down the aisle. Or of course, the flower farmer, the young lady there who runs the farm, it is her farm. She was, presumably very knowledgeable as well. Actually, while we were there was a group of young ladies, women. This is what I thought the aster was. again, it's nodding its head, this one. Probably not quite in focus for you. Let's have a, oh, perhaps if I stood here, I'd be able to show you. So it's a straw flower. So it's the flower that looks like it's dried. And if you, it's, you know, quite a common fresh flower that you can buy, but it looks dried, so it's a really good dried flower. So I've done that with a couple of things, that I've bought the flowers fresh, but this one will dry, so if I look after it, hopefully it's going to rise back up and won't be quite so nodding. And there was something else that I got that I thought could dry as well, and I can't quite remember what that is. So look, some more dahlias. I don't want to dig down too much because they you know, the flowers are delicate and I don't want to break any stems. So I've gone long, so, you know, I've got a bud there that might open. These ones are unlikely to open, but they add to the textural interest of what's going to be in my vase. So just, you know, a little dance in the heat. And then let's go. And there's something else, you know, I bought for height and for a bit of textural interest. So how should I arrange these flowers? I'm not going to arrange the flowers right now. I'm going to, like me in the hot weather, they need a little rest and hydration. So I will, while these flowers are having a drink, I'll be having a drink as well. Cosmos, absolutely beautiful. If you're not already a member of my Facebook group, I'll leave a link to it in the description underneath this video. And I'll post some photographs, but the cosmos, I've noticed in other people's gardens and at this flower farm, the cosmos, you know, it's sort of grown as an informal hedge, really thick. I've seen it in the flower beds at the flower farm, but also a couple of houses near me. And then, you know, it's got all the lovely filigree foliage, and it's, because there's so many plants, it's sort of bulked up into, literally, it looks like a hedge, and then absolutely smothered in flowers. And I've just not been able to get that to happen. Look, another glorious dahlia there. We cut the stems, a little bit of a dip. I quite like this bit of flower arranging. You sort of get to know everything. Say hello to all your flowers. Now, I think this was, what's it? Scabious. Scabious is never a mistake, but I thought I was going down. I'd found the flower I wanted, and I thought I was going down into the depths, and it turned out I hadn't cut the right one, so I hadn't got any flowers on this. But again, that at the side of a vase will be lovely. So there's some of this greenery is going to be underwater, but I kind of want to keep it. Actually, it probably isn't underwater. I didn't overfill my bucket. But, you know, you want everything to be kept long until you decide you want it short. So another sort of like a chocolatey brown scabious there. I love the way it sort of dances around. So you've got a bit of movement, a bit of natural movement in your resultant vase arrangement. You know, it's not only the colour, form and texture, but we want to have rhythm and harmony. And, you know, you don't want anything to be too stiff. So cosmos, a white cosmos, would you have picked that piece of cosmos with just that part open flower? Well, perhaps you would as a flower arranger, because you know that if it's part open, it's probably likely to open. The buds might not open, but they'll add visual interest. And cosmos is a really good flower because you will get the fully open bloom, the part open and the buds, and you've got everything you want in one single stem. Glorious, isn't it? That's a scabious, the sort of chocolate brown burgundy scabious. There is a scabious called, I think it's called chocolate. It's supposed to have the scent of chocolate. I've not got a very good sense of smell. It just smells like a flower to me, but of course it may not be that variety. So the cosmos comes in, you know, it's basically pink and white, but there is some colour variation. I've got a pure white, a deeper pink, and a pale pink there. So I will pick off those bits of frilly foliage, lining up all the stems, recutting them, holding into the boiled water, boiling. It's becoming cooler as we talk, but of course when you're doing this at home, you won't be having a running commentary as to what you are actually doing. So scabious, another dahlia, something else tall and spiky with a little purpley mauve flower. More of the, oh, what did I say it was? Scabious. And then there's a scabious here. There's the dark purple burgundy brown one, and then this one here, the colour of it reminds me of the colour of red clover. It's sort of a soft, velvety, warm, deep pinky red. Oops, I've just chucked that one on the floor. Another spike. Zinnias. I was looking online. Do you follow Donna from Busy Bee Blooms? It's all one word on Instagram. Busy, and the B is just the letter B. She was saying when to pick a zinnia, and she was just wobbling them slightly. And if the head stays firm, it's ready to pick. And if it's not quite ready, it's sort of got a bit too much movement on it. I thought it was quite interesting, actually. So have a look, have a follow of Donna. Let her know that I sent you. She's got lots, because she grows her own flowers. She is a flower farmer. So she's always got really valuable hints, tips and advice. So worth having a look at what she's doing. And more of the helichrysum. Is that what it is? Helichrysum? The straw flower. You can see how it's, you know, when I picked it, it wasn't drooping. What do you think? Is that going to recover? It'd be interesting to see whether it recovers or not. But then when I come to arrange the flowers, and if it has sort of kept its nodded head, I'll just say, oh, I just wanted that flower there because it's lovely arch and quality. It's creating a bit of movement. So never run yourself down or your flowers down. You are the designer. You are the artist. That's exactly how you wanted that flower to be. Interesting greenery as well. I think this is celosia. The sort of tufty. I've got a red one as well. Again, you can, you know, is that arching or is it flopping? I think there might be a bit of floppage. And if once I've let these rest, if any of the flowers look like they haven't recovered, I'm thinking this one in particular, perhaps I've picked this too early in its life cycle and it hasn't hardened off enough, that I could always give it another hot water treatment with water that was actually hot and not rapidly cooling. So celosia is, you quite often see it's like a plume. You can get a variety that's called coxcomb because it looks like the comb on the top of a hen, a chicken. And this one is more of a tufty variety. So again, it's got that interest. Quite nice, you know, we're moving, you know, August. So is there going to be an autumnal nip in the air? It's very hot today, but I think the celosia is quite a nice one to sort of carry you into winter. So dahlias. I'm just going to pinch off the larger leaves here of the zinnia because I want that water to go to the flower head. I don't want it diverting off. So I've got a little mini bunch there. So yes, you don't need to individually cut your stems. I'm individually picking up the flowers so you can see what I've got. If I was doing this at home, I probably literally would have boiled my water in a taller jug so the water was deeper and almost, you know, spread the flowers out and taken, you know, a biggish handful at a time, cut them through, you know, 10 stems at a time, plunge them and then into the tepid water. Sunflowers. The lady, I think it was the mother of the lady who was doing the flower farming. She said that they'd made a grid on the ground with, you know, the impermeable membrane to stop the weeds. And then she said her husband had marked holes so they could plant in the sunflower seedings. Or perhaps she might even have said they direct sowed. But she said that they came up so fast and literally it looked like there was this mini sunflower competition of highest sunflower, because I would say they were easily 3 meters in height. And I think the intention originally was you would have been able to walk through them. So I did do a little bit of shuffle through them, but I was conscious of breaking things that I didn't want to break. But it was really nice. And I've had whispers, you know how if you're on social media, of flower fields locally, there's always a big excitement when the poppies come in to flower, and that people are going off and taking photographs. At the moment it's sunflowers, so I do know there's some sunflowers down where I went for the summer solstice. Did you follow me on Instagram as well? I posted some pictures of that. So down Herne Bay on the coast, but also I've had my sister told me that when she was walking her dog, she spotted a sunflower field within 15 minutes walk of us. So I must put that on my list. I must make some time to walk 15 minutes in a direction I don't normally go. So sunflowers. So I've taken off, I know my water in the bucket's only up to here, but I am going to take off some of these leaves. As I said, I want that precious water resource to go to the flowers and not to the leaves. And also, I don't want the flowers to be overpowered. I think the sunflowers I've chosen have all got quite small heads. This variety here is called Teddy Bear. It's sort of got a very fluffy look. And I think it opens out so that the whole flower is fluffy petals. Normally a sunflower, you've got that disc in the middle that's dark. That's where the sunflower seeds develop. And then just this sort of outer fluff of petals. So there are some differences there. Hence, I didn't get huge sunflowers because experience has taught me that, when you're arranging, that actual balance in sunflowers is very important. And I have had a whole vase of sunflowers topple over. I'm just trying to detangle these. Keep wobbling and wiggling. So there's some finer heads in here. And again, I don't know what these flowers are. The purple looks like an absolute minimum, miniature agapanthus, but I don't know. But again, you can see that sense of natural movement. If I keep these stems long, when the front door, the back door, or the slight breeze coming into my living room catches the flowers, they'll just nod a little bit. And that's quite nice. I don't want my flower arrangements to be stiff and not very attractive. So that is more celosia. The other flower I got that I know will dry is statice. I'm not a huge fan of dried statice. So why did you put it in your bucket, Julie? Well, because I quite like it when it's fresh. And I've specifically chosen pale varieties. You get so used, don't you? If you do see statice, it hangs, if it's dried, it hangs around for a long time. You probably got a dark purple and yellow and a sort of acidy yellow and a white. And then it could be, all the multiple colours are sort of put together, and it just doesn't look very attractive in my view. But I quite like the fact this branch material, the sprays that are coming off, again, it's a different form, and I've been very careful about the stems I selected because they are on the pastel side of the mainly sort of hot pinks and oranges I've chosen. Sweet William. When there weren't many Sweet Williams, so I'm not sure if they were coming into season or they've gone over. I think perhaps the Sweet William's a bit earlier in the year. So there's some more dahlias. I also picked some Queen's Anne lace. I think the horticultural equivalent of cow parsley, but it's looking very bedraggled. And again, that might be because it's just a bit too early in the season. I probably picked from what was there. I didn't want, because of course, if you pick it fully open, it's only, open to dead, whereas part open, dead. It means I have to flower longer. So I don't know whether perhaps I have just picked them when the flowers weren't actually robust enough to withstand. There's a tiniest bit of colour in those, but yeah, perhaps I've just picked the stems which are a little bit immature. So I would think if my celosia looks a bit floppy, my straw flowers and my Queen Anne's lace, if by a couple of hours they still look as if they need a bit of treatment, I might whip those out and hot water them again just to get them going. And then this I thought was interesting. It's sort of got the shape of a hibiscus. I don't know whether it is, but I picked this bit as well because it's got these really intriguing seed heads. So perhaps Is there anything in there? I should see if I can sow some seeds. So in there, look at that. That's looking incredibly sorry for itself. So I'll put that in there. And now I have, the flowers have relaxed a little bit. Instead of, I wasn't squashing them in because I now understand how delicate my flowers are, but I was making sure I was packing them in tightly. And now with a little bit of rest and relaxation, they've quite easily filled this bucket. So sunflower again, I think I've got 3 different varieties, just slightly different colours. So, if this was a zinnia, you can see its wobbling head, Donna would say, don't pick it. Perhaps the same thing applies to sunflowers. I shall let you know what happens to that. So that is my conditioning done. I'm not using flower food because, they were picked and put in water conditioned all within, 5 miles of my house and, 45 minutes. So isn't that absolutely amazing? So what I think I might do, not just now, but I might well, do a huge arrangement. How big can I go? And then, as the whim takes me, I could perhaps separate the flowers and do a yellow arrangement, a pink arrangement. And then the joy of flower arranging is that every day you could arrange something a little bit different. Now I've made a bit of a mess here, so I will have to get my compost bucket out. But thank you so much for joining me, keeping me company while I sorted out my flowers, and I'll catch up with you next time.